Two, one, and welcome back to a little bit of synergy. I am your host, Anthony Thomas, 11001, or just Tony T. Tonight I'm joined by a special guest, Mr. Marc Sheffler. You might know him from the cult classic Last House on the Left. Welcome, Marc.
Well, thank you. How are you, Tony? Nice. Thank you for having me.
I appreciate you taking the time, Marc. You showed up at these are my prime podcasting hours. I hate to waste them, and I'm glad I got to have you on because
Very kind of you to say.
it's an honor. Yeah, a lot of buzz in the community when there's like a resurgence in the popularity of the film. It seems like. Have you
Well,
noticed?
interesting. Uh, First time I saw it all put together, um, I saw an answer print of it at a screening at a film waste post production house on the west side of Manhattan. Cast and crew screening, cast crew and investors. So I walked outside afterwards and talked to David Hess and Fred Lincoln, and we all kind of looked at each other and laughed and pretty much said the same thing to each other, which was, it was great meeting you guys. We'll be friends forever, I think, but no one's ever going to come to see this piece of shit. And that was what we thought. So, it got released initially. I think Sean made 30 prints in the first run and delivered them to the people who financed the film, Hallmark Releasing out of Boston. And they put them in their drive-ins. They had like, I don't know, a dozen drive-ins in the New England area. And they put the film in there, and it was, you know, first 3 weeks, 4 weeks was doing decent business, was doing exactly what they thought. And somehow Roger Ebert got a hold of a print, screened it, wrote a 3.5 out of 4 star review, and people toss the word literally around like a racquetball these days, but literally overnight, everything changed. I walked into Sean's office the day after, or the day that the Ebert review came out, and I remember him running around like a lunatic, trying to scramble to get 1,000 prints because he just got an order for 1,000 prints. So yeah, it's been an interesting ride with that movie. And then the point of what I was going to say is, last August, Last House, the film was part of an exhibition at the Museum of Modern Art in New York, screened as part of a exhibition on cinema and film, with the theme being films that have had a visceral effect on the human body.
Okay.
So it's really run a gamut. I'm dumbfounded by it. I sort of understand it, but still dumbfounded by it. I'm even more dumbfounded the fact that I had anything to do with it.
Well, you definitely had an integral role in.
Yes, I know that. I'm reminded of that all the time, which makes it even more of a mind fuck for me.
You embody the pathos, the whole pathos of the story.
Well, I was grateful to Wes and Sean to have cast me, and um, am grateful that I'm a very tiny grain of sand on the beach of American film history. Right? I'm part of it. I'm tiny, tiny part, but yet a part of it.
Yes, definitely. What else? Well, I mean, I was looking at your
IMDb.
Discog, yeah, IMDb.
Yeah, yeah.
Some stuff I was trying to
So,
find.
so what happened was, I so became enthralled with filmmaking, the whole process,
Mhm.
that I just, after Last House, I did some commercials in New York afterwards, but I sort of concentrated. I wanted to become a writer.
Okay.
I really that had some kind of magical allure for me, right?
Yeah.
So I put my, I didn't stop going on auditions, but I more kind of concentrated on that, and you know, kind of self-taught stuff, and
Mhm.
was very motivated by the how do I say this? Okay, when I left college in 1969, I had three life goals. I dropped out of college. I was going to LSU in Baton Rouge,
Mhm.
and I had three life goals. I wanted to smoke as much weed as possible. I wanted to sleep with as many different women as possible. And I wanted to make, just enough money to afford the weed and the women. And I always wanted to be in the entertainment business, so it all kind of seemed like the right thing to do. So continued acting, and uh after Last House was an awakening for me.
Okay.
And I got to experience what it was like to be one of the stars of a top 10 movie in the United States,
Yeah.
albeit for like, maybe 2 or 3 weeks. It wasn't very long,
Uh,
but it was very real for the
yeah.
time that it existed. And I made the decision during that 3 week period that this was an excellent career choice. I had made a proper decision for myself.
Okay. Okay.
And then everything after Last House, which had a meteoric rise, but it fell off the face of the earth just as quickly.
Mhm.
So there I was back again, being an out of work actor, just a fucking out of work actor in New York. There's like thousands, millions of me. So yes, this is silly. And where once the rivers flowed, now we're nothing but dry riverbeds.
Okay.
I, I was spending time alone, and I wasn't used to myself anymore. I didn't know what I was going to do, and then one night I was at a party in New York, in Manhattan, and I see a guy no different looking than me, type wise, talking to a stunningly beautiful model actress type in her early 20s.
Okay.
Just fucking stunning. Like you could have just snapped a picture and put it on a magazine. And whatever this guy was saying to her, this woman was trapped in his tractor beam.
She was buying it, right?
She was fucking buying what this guy was selling. You bet your ass. So, under the guise of, being hungry and wanting a snack or two, I moseyed over to the table, and I started listening to their conversation. And what I heard was this guy saying, well, I finished act 2 and I'm about to start the third act. I think I have the ending figured out. And I really got to get to work because my agent out at LA has has a studio breathing down his neck. I got to turn this in. And she's just like lapping this shit up like it was like milk and honey. And they leave together,
Mhm.
right?
Mhm.
They leave together. And I thought to myself, I could do that. I could tell girls I'm a writer. So I went out and bought a bunch of books on writing, and I read them, picked up buzzwords, plot, climax, rising action, narrative, underlying narrative, subtext. I picked up all the lingo,
Mhm.
and I started going around to places, and everywhere I went in mixed company, I was a writer.
Okay.
And the more I did it, it grew exponentially into actually sounding like something.
Right.
And then I started using it with women, and
Okay.
it worked. Like it just worked. It just like I just had it down, right? It was like a stand-up routine that I had been breaking in and breaking. It just worked. So I was sort of riding the wave of that because I maybe done it like 20 times, 25 times, and it got better. It got like really real. And I was in an audition for a commercial at a place where I'd worked before that was owned by a commercial director, an award-winning commercial director by the name of N. Lee Lacy. And he and I became friendly. Like, he liked me. He was an older guy, married, just like very hip guy with offices all over the world. And we laughed at the same stuff. We had a nice relationship. He was a very good guy, and became an important part of my life ultimately. So I'm in his place waiting to audition, and I'm talking to some girl, some actress in his reception area, and she's buying it just perfect. I'm laying it out. There it is. It's just going like, it's like a tape. It just you press on and there it goes. And she's giving me her phone number, and as she's doing that, I get a tap on my shoulder, and I turn around, and it's Lee Lacy. It's the director. And he said, "Hey, listen, can I talk to you for a sec?" And I said, "Yeah, sure." So I excused myself, and he said, "I didn't mean to listen to your conversation, but I have an agent out in Los Angeles. I want to see that script when you're finished. I love what you said. I want to see that." And I looked at him and I said, "Lee, I've known you a few years and you've hired me, and I want you to continue to hire me. So I'm going to be real honest with you. I'm not writing anything." He said, "What? You were telling that girl?" I said, "I was just to get laid, man. Just that's it." He said to me, he said, "Is it working?" I said, "Yeah, man, all the time." He said, "Mark, I like you, and I've known you, you're right, for a couple of years, but I think you're an idiot." And I said, "Why?" He said, "Mark, if you can get women to take their pants off by something that you're saying to them, imagine if you actually sat down and wrote a script and wrote those words onto a page in a story." And in a way that only like a person in their early 20s can say this, I said, I hadn't actually looked at it that way. So he said to me, "Write that script and give it to me." So I said, "Okay." So what happened was, it took me a while to write it. I didn't know what I was doing. So I think it took me like a year or something to write that script, to actually write it. Because I'd get lazy and I didn't have any discipline, and it was just all kinds of shit. So I think it might have taken me a year to do something that now I could probably do in 3 weeks, right? So I finally finished it, and I gave it to him. I delivered it to him, and I didn't hear anything. A couple of months went by, and then one day he called me up and he said, "Hey," he said, "What?" He said, "What are you doing?" I said, "Nothing. I'm just at my dad's house, in Pittsburgh, not really doing much right now, just hanging out with him." He said, "Well, how'd you like to move to California?" I said, "What?" So, "Well, remember that script?" I said, "Yeah." He said, "Well, I gave it to my agent at William Morris, who gave it to the TV department at William Morris, who then sold it to NBC."
Shit.
I said, "What?" He said, "That's right." He said, "So you have a car, an office, and an apartment waiting for you next Thursday. Your airline ticket is being handled right now."
That's what's up.
And that's why the day I moved to Los Angeles, the day I landed in 1976, when I moved, I had an agent, William Morris. I had a car. I had an apartment and an office on Melrose Place, right next to Neil Diamond.
Wow.
And that's how my life began here. So, my dad always said something to me that was pretty interesting. When I dropped out of college, I wanted to come to California immediately. And my dad said, "No, I don't think so." And I said, what do you mean? He said, go to New York first. Go. And he said, go to the Catskill Mountains, and you want to be a stand-up, you want to do comedy. That's the center of stand-up in the United States, is in the Catskill Mountains. It's 1969. So that it was in New York City. It was. And he said, go there. And I said, well, what about LA? He said, I've been to LA, not a place you just want to go to. I said, what do you mean? He said, if you're meant to go to LA, and I think you are, one day it's going to reach out and pull you there.
Mm-hmm.
And the day Lee called me up and said, you need to move to LA. You have this doing, you got to be out there.
Mm-hmm.
Called my dad and I told him, I said, remember what you said about LA pulling me there? And I told him, and he said, well, there you go. And it's interesting because I didn't have that, even though I had dips in my career through the years, I didn't have that experience of landing in Los Angeles with, $2 in my pocket and
Mm-hmm.
getting a job as a waiter and trying to do, I landed there. I was just, I landed on a, like on a moving train.
Right.
And it's interesting because I know a lot of people who are now very successful who similarly came to LA on a moving train.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, it's really weird. I'm writing a book about my life and career,
Mm-hmm.
but I novelized it. I'm writing it third person. I've created a character
Okay.
who's my alter ego.
Okay.
And the title of the book is Dumb Effing Luck.
Okay.
And because as I outlined it, I hit on key moments throughout my life, and these were always things that could have gone another way,
Mm-hmm.
you know.
Yeah.
And it's like Woody Allen's Match Point, right? It's where the ball lands on, and if it hits the net, it's on what side it lands.
Yeah.
Uh, and in key moments of my life, the ball landed on the right side of the net.
It's fucking awesome.
I'll tell you, you see that picture behind me?
Yeah.
Okay. So people always, I get the question, I get a question. A lot of people in my business get a question, a similar question, and that is, when did you know you were interested in being the performer? When did you know and everybody has their own answer, right?
Mm-hmm.
When did you know you got the bug? People say, and everybody has their own answer, and mine's a little different. When I was approaching my 10th birthday, my father, this very out of the box, silk mohair, custom made suit wearing, alligator shoe wearing, Cadillac driving, pinky ring, diamond ring wearing, aluminum siding salesman.
Okay.
Yeah, came to me and said, "Hey, you're going to be 10 in a couple of months. That's a very special birthday. It's a very special decade that you're entering because you go in a little boy and you come out a man,
Mm-hmm.
a young man. So it's a very transformative, decade for you. Requires a special gift. Just tell me what you want, and then if I can get it for you, I will." So I said, being a child of a young boy of my era, I said, "How about the Three Stooges?" So my father said, "Okay, I'll look into it." So the next day he called a friend of his who was the booker at a nightclub in Pittsburgh where the Three Stooges had performed, do perform on a yearly basis, and found out that they're going to be in Pittsburgh in January of 1959. My birthday was in September,
Okay.
but so he called their agent, said he wanted to throw a party Saturday afternoon on this day. Are they in? They agreed on terms. That was that, right? Came to me
Right.
and said, "Hey, I can get the Stooges. It's going to be in January. Up to you." I said, absolutely. So cut two, right? That day, about 60 friends, family, just people who couldn't believe it, kind of thing,
Mm-hmm.
friends of my dad. And they do their show. And halfway through their show, Mo stops the show and looks out at the audience and said, well, we're all here to celebrate Mark's birthday. Where's Mark? So I raised my hand, and Mo says to me, your dad tells us that you're Pittsburgh's #1 Stooge fan. Is that true? And I said, yeah, it is. And I know all your material. So Mo said, really? Well, I'll be the judge of that. Why don't you come up on this stage with us? And I froze. I didn't know what to do. My father leaned into me and said, no time to explain this now. Just get your ass up on the stage. So I went up, and I remember not being intimidated, like not, like I knew that these were the Three Stooges, and that was kind of trippy, but I wasn't, I wasn't really beside myself. I was kind of in control of myself.
Yeah.
So I started doing, Mo said something about, well, what's your favorite bit? And I said, Niagara Falls. And he said, Niagara Falls? I said, backwards and forwards. So I started doing it. And Larry and Curly Joe Dorita were getting the biggest kick out of it. They were, they thought it was hysterical because I was ostensibly like a little Curly Howard, right? Because
Okay.
that's who my Matrix was. So what happened was Mo stops the show again, puts his hand on my forehead and says, I dub you the fourth Stooge. And everybody went nuts. They just they went, of course it was a papered house, but still they went fucking nuts. They went crazy. And I felt this warm, this kind of blanket that just hugged me. And I'm convinced that's the day, because I've been after that. I've been chasing that dragon my entire life. That's that was the moment. Yeah, I just aim. I just that moment lit up the runway of my life, man. That's I felt so comfortable on that stage. I just never wanted to leave it. I couldn't see shit, like lights were in my eyes and I could only hear people. I could see the Stooges, obviously, but I remember just loving it up there, just really loving it.
That's
So
amazing.
yeah,
It's an amazing story. Wow. Wow. Yeah. Meeting my heroes has been humbling for me as well.
who's
But
that?
oh, just reaching out and meeting folks like
Oh,
yourself.
okay. I thought. I'm sorry. I thought there was somebody specific in mind that you mentioned.
Oh well, I mean, I got to meet Larry Hankin. I got to meet
Yeah, I know Larry.
yeah. I've gotten to meet some musicians that are really big in my circles because I'm a musician myself,
Oh, good.
and they're
What do you play?
mainly synthesizer and guitar, and I program beats and stuff like that. But I produce my record label's L.A. based, and two of the three musicians I've interviewed over the past year are in L.A. as well. I don't know if you know Annie Hardy or
No, I wouldn't. I don't go in those circles anymore. Used to hang out with some musicians, but not anymore.
okay, okay, right. My sister tells horror stories of L.A., but
Why is that?
she came out here for rehab.
Well, I love it. You know something? It's I hear people do that, and obviously it's based on experience. I love Los Angeles. It's been really nice to me.
Mm,
It's
yeah.
it's taken an idiot like me and given me a life. It's it's allowed me to exist, and been all in all pretty kind to me.
Yeah.
Uh,
Oh, I've got to get out there at some point.
yeah, I think again, I think a lot has to do with how I got here, and that because I've seen people who are really struggling, and having a bad time of it. And you know, as warm as LA can be, it can be extremely cold to people too. It
Yeah.
can, you know, I mean, and
That
it's
was.
very cyclical, and you know, it's a game that it takes you years to learn how to play.
Is that right?
Yeah, yeah,
Mm,
yeah. It's much subtler than New York. New York is kind of out there, you know.
mm. Okay.
Everybody wears shit on their sleeve. LA is not like that. LA is very subtle, and it's, but at the same time, you know, I look at it and it's been just extraordinarily kind to me,
Mm.
you know, just extraordinarily kind to me. Um, it gave me everything I wanted in life. So how do you say, you know, can't say bad things about a place that did that?
Sure. Sure. No, it's cool to hear this fresh perspective. 'Cause,
Yeah. And you know, it's it really beyond a certain point, it's it's what you make out of it,
mm,
right?
mm,
We're all ostensibly the captains of our own ships.
yeah.
And everybody gets their fuck up time. You know, we're making poor choices and making mistakes, either personally or professionally, is excusable because you know it's you're in your experience gathering years.
Right.
After a certain point, you know, you then once you're old enough or experienced enough to know better, whichever comes first. You know, it's like you know 5 years or 50,000 miles, whichever comes first. As long as you're at that point where you should know better, if shit doesn't work and you then you know you should know better.
Yeah. Well put.
When I was at the Comedy Store, you know, I was part of the class of '77 with Robin Williams and David Letterman and Jay Leno and
Really.
Andreessen and Michael Keaton and Tim Reed, those guys. You know, there were hundreds of people trying to be comedians. And, you know, I've been lucky. My name's been on the wall of the Comedy Store for like 40 some years, like with the original group. And but there are people who came and went. They, you know, they couldn't, if you can imagine, like there's the bubble, right? There's this invisible bubble,
Mm-hmm.
and show business for real exists within that bubble,
Okay.
right?
Mm.
And they're constantly out in LA, people just bouncing off the fucking bubble, man, just
Mm.
trying to get in, trying to get in, trying to, and then there are people who just walk up to it and they just float right in, right? They just there's not, you know, and I was one of them. I know, I know exactly what that's like, you know. I when I went to the Comedy Store, which was like at the beginning of its meteoric rise as like the you know the number one place for stand up in the fucking United States.
Mm.
Um, like I said, I got there. Robin got there like 2 weeks before me. Leno had been there back and forth from Boston to LA. Letterman had just gotten there maybe 3 months before. You know, we all got there within a 6 month period. Like, you know, we're all everybody in that group got there right around the same time.
Mm-hmm.
And we all became regulars very quickly, right?
Yeah.
Like it just like that crew assembled very quickly. Like I became a regular, you know, William Morris got me a time at the Comedy Store my first time. And because Mitzi didn't know who I was, I'm talking about Mitzi Shore, who owned the Comedy Store. Mitzi didn't know who I was, but as a favor to William Morris, she said, sure, I'll give him a time on a Monday night. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
So I had a time and I wrote some new material, and I had done in the Catskill Mountains as part of a very well-known comedian's act. I had done like 150, 200 club dates, ending up with 2 weeks at the Copacabana. So being on stage was like nothing new for me, right?
Okay.
So yeah. So I wrote material that I thought would work. I went up the first time. It worked as well as I could be expected for the first time. They invited me back next week. I fixed the material, did some tweaks, cut some shit, added some shit, went up the second time, worked exponentially better.
Mm-hmm.
And they gave me a time again for the next week, my third time. That night, the club was extremely crowded. Energy was very high. Uh, um, Mitzi was in her booth showcasing another comedian. So I had like a 10:30, 10:45 time spot, some prime time spot. The comedians in front of me did the perfect thing. They were all good. Like four comedians in front of me were terrific.
Mm-hmm.
So my turn to go on, the audience is like here, right?
Yeah.
So I know all I got to do is keep them there. I don't even have to do, I just got to keep them floating.
Okay.
Right. I go out there and luck as it was, the audience juiced from the other acts. They bought everything I was selling and just reacted to everything almost like they crazy. Like it was like, and I was even thinking this is too much, but I'm gonna sit here and take it, right? So I finished my set and I go off to like thunderous applause, like they just going crazy. I walk off and I see Mitzi sitting in her booth, looking at the audience and looking at me. And I think to myself, yeah, I really don't give a fuck. So I walked right up to her and I said, hey, Mitzi, does it really have to get any better than that? And she said to me, all right, Mark, call in for spots. And that's how I became a regular. That I just, it's like I tell people, you got to just seize on shit. You can't pass shit up. It's, that was like a shit or get off the pot moment, right?
Right.
That was a moment where you either have the balls to do that,
Mm-hmm.
or you go back to the end of the line again. I didn't feel like doing that.
Right.
you know and part of the courage, the courage that I had to do that came from the fact that I had a big time agent, right?
Right.
I was going around meeting producers for pilot season as a writer,
Mm-hmm.
and I had a manager. I was going to have I was going to have a manager soon. I mean, just there were and I had money in the bank, and it was like I had this air of I was cocky because I had so much in my pocket that this was willing to take the chance. The worst she could have said to me was no,
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But she was caught up in the moment. Like I could see while the audience was applauding, I did this. I didn't waste any time. This was like a nanosecond decision.
Yeah. Right. Perfect
But
time.
you got to do shit like that.
Yeah.
This is the thing. It's like you this it's like chess in a sense. You gotta see a move and then know that this is a move and make it, and be brave enough to make it.
Right. Fortune favors the bold.
That's it. Fortune favors the bold. You're right. You're absolutely right. So again, I'm lucky that I was able to be there to do that.
That's cool. So what about lately? What are you doing these days?
Um, I'm writing a book
Mm-hmm.
that I'm a couple of hundred pages into. Have an agent for my book, which is good. And I have two television series. I'm right at the beginning stages. I have developed up now sufficiently that I can go and try to sell them. One is just like a 8 to 10 episode limited series,
Mm-hmm.
and the other is like 8 to 10 episodes for 7 years. In fact, the title of that show is called Those 7 Years.
Okay.
So, um, so that's it. And otherwise, enjoying my house. I have a house, out in the Palm Springs area of California,
Mm-hmm.
and just chilling, just fucking enjoying it.
Might as well. Might
Yeah.
as well. Yeah. it's good that you can. It's good that in the midst of all of this that's going on in America in particular. Um,
Oh yeah, listen, I watch shit every day. It's weird what's going on. Like
yeah,
everybody needs to just chill the fuck out.
everybody does.
Seriously. People, you need to legalize pot in every fucking state and make it
Yeah,
mandatory. Make people smoke pot and chill the fuck out. You know, man.
it's for your own betterment. Yes, it's for society as a whole.
So, you're a musician. I'll tell you a story. I was working as a road manager for a comedian by the name of London Lee
Okay.
uh, back in the day in New York. And London was from a very wealthy family in New York. His father was a garment district guy with a giant company, so like hundreds of millions of dollars, and London decided to be a comedian. Now, and the theme of his act, his character was that he was a poor little rich kid, right?
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
That like he had jokes in his act. When I was a kid, my father got me a German Shepherd, not a dog, a real German Shepherd, and just silly shit like that. That
Yeah.
all tracked to how rich his father was and how stupid that can be.
Right. Right.
So I was like I said, I was his road manager, and then I wrote some jokes for him that really worked, and then I became part of his act. We did a little like sort of like a vaudeville bit
Okay.
about me and his act.
Okay.
So I had been on stage with him, I don't know, 40, 50 times by the time this story takes place.
Mm-hmm.
And he gets a gig New Year's Eve in New Jersey, and it's fucking snowing and it's shitty weather, and it didn't matter. He had that, he wanted to do those gigs in that time. So I knew we were going to be going out into that shit. So about 6 o'clock at night, shows like at 9:30, 10 o'clock, something like that. At 6 o'clock at night, he calls me up and he said, "Listen, we have a problem, but I have a solution." I said, "What's the problem?" He said that my musical conductor is sick and I can't find anybody. So he had music like For Once in My Life, Stevie Wonder's For Once in My Life.
Mm-hmm.
He had charts for like 38 pieces, right? So yeah, he had like charts. He had opening music, opening bows, closing bows, just so he had real charts. He had like shit, right?
Yeah.
And I know because I used to hang with the conductors during rehearsals.
Mm-hmm.
And I would be the one to explain certain things about his act to them that they would know where certain cues were, right?
Okay.
So I said, okay, so what's your solution? He said, "You're gonna conduct the orchestra." I said, "What?" And I remember I'm like 19 years old. And he said, "You got a fucking tuxedo, right?" I said, "Yeah." He said, "You'll hold up the wand. You've done fucking rehearsals for like, I don't know, 50 times. You know what that shit is. Just, you want to be an actor? Act like a fucking conductor." So I said, "Do I have a choice?" He said, "No, you do not." And I said, "Okay." So we drove to the gig, and it was in this club in New Jersey. I don't even know where, but it was close to the city, like within an hour of the city. And I walk in, and there's like a 34-piece orchestra,
Mhm.
real musicians,
Right.
right? Not only was I fucking 19, I couldn't read a note of music. Okay, not one fucking note. But I knew, like London said, I want to be an actor, act like a conductor. I knew the language from listening to all of those people all of
Yeah.
that time, right? Like I knew the dialogue.
Yeah.
I even knew the questions that some of the musicians might have, and I knew the answers. but I didn't really know the answers. I could repeat the answers,
Okay. Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
And make it sound like I knew the answers. So I rehearsed the band. I do exactly an amalgam of my favorite conductors that I've seen
Hmm.
and what they said. And come showtime, light goes on. I counted it down and took the band right, took the orchestra rather, took that orchestra right through his opening song. He actually sang for once in my life, right? And I took him and the fucking orchestra through the whole song. Couldn't fucking believe it.
The Stevie Wonder.
I'm telling you.
Holy shit.
There you go. So that's my most profound musical experience in my life.
Wow. Wow. That talk about being in the right place at the right time.
There you go.
This
See,
is
that's the thing about life. Okay, here's what life is. It If you're trying to get anywhere in life, if you're not trying, and there's nothing wrong with that, you stay on your side of the creek and you never get your feet wet. There's nothing wrong with that, right? Like people who grow up, go to high school in a certain place, never leave the community, and that's where they live. There's nothing wrong with it. I got friends that are incredible people. That was their life decision.
yeah.
No problem. So then you get the people who want to get to the other side of the creek because they're adventurous, right? They want to go. And life, that creek is a raging creek. That creek is designed to take you down, right?
Yeah.
It's it's a filtration system. It's designed to stop you from getting to the other side. So I have been again very fucking lucky that on my journey across that creek, pretty much every time I've needed a stepping stone to appear, it did.
Mm-hmm.
So now I got to the other side of the creek and I look back and I don't know how I did it sometimes. And the only thing I can say is it's just a lot of it was like dumb youth and didn't know what I couldn't do, uh,
Okay.
kind of things, and luck.
I respect that.
You
Yeah.
know,
Yeah.
that's I mean, it's weird. Like I found out the other day. Somebody sent me an article, an interview with Quentin Tarantino,
Uh-huh.
and he said the two films of every film he's ever seen in his life, the two films that scared the shit out of him and continue to haunt him are Bambi and Last House on the Left. So, man, I'll tell you, there you go. Dumb fucking luck.
Great story.
Dumb fucking luck.
Wow. Dumb fucking luck.
It's just dumb luck.
I appreciate that, man. So, yeah, man. I think I think we got it.
You're very FM, man. Tony, you're a very FM guy.
How do you figure? How you figure?
You're just low key. You're like every FM disc jockey in the 60s and 70s.
Right. I actually do late night broadcasting on the internet, and yeah, That's the first time I've been called FM, but it makes sense.
Yeah. Go listen to some FM. Go listen to some recordings of old FM broadcasters and jocks, and you'll see. I'll go, oh yeah, that's what he was talking about.
Well, I appreciate you being on Synergy, man. This
Hey,
is a movement. Um, I'll definitely send you the finished product.
okay, that'd be great.
I'll send you the YouTube
That'd be great.
and the audio.
Okay.
Okay, cool. Well, thanks for being on, Mark. It was good to meet you, man.
My pleasure. You have a good night and a wonderful holiday season.
Same to you. Same to you.
All right, man.
All right, man.